بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم لا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم الحمد لله رب العالمين وصلى الله على سيدنا ونبينا أبي القاسم المصطفى محمد وعلى آله الطيبين الطاهرين لا سيما بقية الله في الأرضين أجل الله تعالى فرجه الشريف. This is our second session on human relations. In the previous session, we talked about different types of positive, sympathetic relations that human beings can make with each other. And then we focused on the first one, which was to become as husband and wife, as spouses. And we mentioned the Quranic view about this. We refer to biological side of it, but more importantly to the spiritual side of it. We also talked about this relation continuing in heaven, whether it is heaven of Adam and Eve or eternal heaven. Today we want to talk about the second type of this positive relation, and that is what the Quran calls to be Khalil, to be friend, but friend which is used in English translation can be equivalent to Khalil, can be equivalent to Sadiq, sometimes to Wali. So it's better to use Khalil itself and see what is the meaning of Khalil in the Quran. There are several places that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talks about this type of relation. It doesn't necessarily exist between good people. It can be between also bad people. Sometimes bad people become friends of each other. Sometimes good people become friends for each other. But this is in this world. In the hereafter, friendship exists only between good people. You cannot have friendship in the hereafter between bad people. One of the verses about this type of relation is verse 254 of chapter 2, Surah Baqarah. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم يا أيها الذين آمنوا, O those who believe, أنفقوا مما رزقناكم من قبل أن يأتي يوم لا بيع فيه ولا خلة ولا شفاعة. Spend from what Allah has given you, from the sustenance that we have provided you with, before the day comes in which neither business exists, nor friendship, nor intercession. So the money or the goods that Allah has given you in this world, you have to use it before they become useless. If they become useless, then you cannot do anything with them. Imagine if you have some currency and then the government is going to change. Suppose they are changing the unit of currency. For example, it was Riyal, now it's going to become dinar, for example. They give you some time. They say by this time you have to change whatever you have to take it to bank and take new currency. If you are very rich, you have millions of them, but before the time expires, you don't go to change them into new currency, they become useless. You cannot say, I had millions of them, I was a very rich person, I had made lots of effort to achieve them. It's useless. Even they may ask you to pay in order to get rid of them. You have to pay to someone to take it to, for example, a place for keeping the rubbish or to recycle it. Allah says, what we have given you in this world, which is very valuable, if you don't use it and keep it for that day, it will not work. It will not be useful anymore. Because in that day, la bay'un fi, there is no possibility of selling or buying something with this. There is no possibility of asking a friend to help, and there is no possibility of asking a person to intercede for you. Of course, we believe in shafa'ah, we believe in the possibility of someone interceding, but that has its own requirements. No one can intercede for a person who is not a believer. No one can intercede for a person who has not done anything good in the past. If there is a person who has faith and he has mixed action of good and bad, then there is a possibility of intercession. But if someone has nothing good, there is no possibility of intercession. So, if I go without any capital, without any investment which I have made for my next life, I would be totally poor. And if you are totally poor, nothing can help you. But if you have at least transferred some of your belonging in this world into that world in a currency which works in that world, then that would be beneficial. So, la bay'un fi, there is no business there, you cannot sell or purchase. Wala khulla, there is no friendship. So friendships which have worldly nature will stop. What type of friendship? If friendship is based on just gaining something material, something worldly from it. For example, I have become friend with someone because we go together and, for example, drink or eat or go to, for example, to see some sights. Just we enjoy ourselves in a very superficial level. Our friendship is not based on something spiritual. Our friendship is not based on taqwa. Our friendship is not based on being companions for achieving something great. Just we enjoy ourselves because we don't want to be alone. Or if God forbids, we are friends in doing bad things. So we go together and steal money. We go together and rob people. This is a type of friendship. So the friendship which is for bad reasons or for worldly reasons, even if they are not bad but they are neutral, this friendship is not going to continue in the hereafter. And inshallah we will read later that indeed this becomes enmity. So there is no friendship of the worldly nature working there, and there is no intercession. وَالْكَافِرُونَ هُمُ الظَّالِمُونَ. There are many people who have done injustice to themselves. Even believers who are sinful, they have done injustice to themselves. مَنْ يَتَعَدَّ حُدُودَ اللَّهِ فَقَدْ ظَلَمَ نَفْسَهُ. So a believer who commits a sin, he has done injustice to himself. But the people who are totally in loss, the people who have totally been unjust, are the people who have done injustice in the greatest thing, and that is belief in God. إِنَّ الشِّرْكَ لَظُلْمٌ عَظِيمٌ. If someone, instead of believing in one God, believes in many gods, if he associates some partners to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, this is great injustice. This is great zulm to himself, not to God. No one can do anything to God. No one can harm God. Is injustice to himself. So those who have no faith, no belief in God, these are the greatest oppressors. These are the greatest people in injustice. إِنَّ الْكَافِرُونَ هُمُ الظَّالِمُونَ. But lower than them comes the people who have faith, but they have not sent anything to the next world to help them. They believed in God, but no good action. no infaq in particular. In this verse, the focus is on infaq, on charity, on spending your money, your belonging for the sake of God. If we don't transfer some money to that world by doing some charitable work, we have done zulm. Because I had something valuable, I have wasted it. I have done zulm to my money, I have done zulm to myself. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَالْكَافِرُونَ هُمُ الظَّالِمُونَ. Similar to this is Surah Ibrahim, which is chapter 14, number 31. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم قُلْ لِعِبَادِيَ الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا. The same verse that I just recited also started يَا أَيُّهَا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا. This is also قُلْ لِعِبَادِيَ الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا. Those who believe, they have to be warned about this. Those who don't believe, they have very clear future. But even those who believe, they may forget. They may not do something good that can help them in the hereafter. So Allah says, tell my servants who believe, يُقِيمُوا الصَّلَاةِ. They should establish prayer. It's not just enough to be a believer. If you are a believer, you have to have also some righteous deeds. And in particular, these two, as you know, in many verses, maybe some 20 verses of the Qur'an, salat and zakat come together. Establishing prayer and charity. يُقِيمُوا الصَّلَاةِ وَيُنْفِقُوا مِمَّا رَزَقْنَاهُمْ سِرًّا وَعَلَانِيَةً. Sometimes you have to spend your money in secret. No one needs to know other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Why should people know about this? It's better if it is between you and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Even if the person who receives doesn't know you, it's better. Not only you should not inform the third party, even the person who receives, there is no need that he knows that you have given him. But sometimes there are public causes, and if you don't, for example, go to help, you cannot help in secret. You have to volunteer, maybe you have to put your name in a list, maybe you have to send a check, maybe you have to transfer money through a bank account, so your name will be known. You should not say, I don't do this because I want to do only secret things. Whatever is better for the general good, you have to be ready to do it. Your own preference is to do it in private. But if there is something that you have to do it in public, then you should do it. Especially, there are some type of occasions that if you do something good in public, it will encourage other people. If the alim, if imam of a mosque who asks people to help, for example, some poor families, if people see that he himself pays money, they would be encouraged. If he doesn't pay in front of them, then they may think these ulama only say people to give money and he doesn't pay himself. So sometimes to encourage people, you have to do something in public. But your first choice is to do it privately. يُنْفِقُوا مِمَّا رَزَقْنَاهُمْ سِرًّا وَعَلَانِيَةً مِنْ قَبْلِ أَنْ يَأْتِيَ يَوْمٌ. Before the time is over. And that is the day that لَا بَيْعٌ فِيهِ وَلَا خِلَالٌ. There is no possibility of any transaction. There is no possibility of selling or purchasing anything. And there is no friendship. You cannot do anything unless you have sent in advance the appropriate currency, the appropriate means and provision. You cannot rely on your friends. You cannot rely on your money. You know, in especially traditional societies like Arab society, and to some extent even today, especially in Eastern societies, friends are very important. Maybe in a modern liberal society, friendship is not that significant that it used to be. In traditional societies, friends were ready to die for each other. Your friend is sometimes closer to you than your family members. Friendship is very important. But even such friends cannot do anything for each other on the day of judgment. So, these two verses similarly refer to the significance of doing something in this world, especially doing some charitable work, before you lose the opportunity for doing something good with the money that Allah has given you, with the goods that Allah has given you. And in both cases, Allah says, this is what we have given you. Razaqnakum or razaqnahum. It's not your own achievement. I shouldn't think that what Allah has given me, it's my own achievement. Like, Qarun, when he was told, ابتغ فيما آتاك الله الدار الآخرة ولا تنس نصيبك من الدنيا, they told him, seek through what Allah has given you something good for your hereafter. He said, this is my own achievement. إنما أوتيت على علم من عندي. This is my own knowledge and expertise, my cleverness in business that has made me rich. He didn't want to admit that this is from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And Allah showed him how he can quickly take away. If it was his own achievement, he should be able to keep it and preserve it. So Allah says, Razaqnakum, razaqnahum. Means it's from us. We give you so that you can have some opportunity to do something good. It's a test for you. Either you use it in the way that we ask you, or you waste it. In Surah Zukhruf, which is chapter 43, verse 67, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala explains that worldly friendship not only stops, indeed it becomes enmity and hostility. Al-akhilla'u, those who are khalil, those who are friends in this world, yawma idhin, on that day, ba'dhuhum li ba'dhin aduw, all of them become enemy for each other, illa al-muttaqin. So if friendship is based on piety, then it can remain and endure. On the day of judgment, still you would have people who are friends. When people run away and escape from their parents, from their children, from their spouses, you would see mu'mineen would not run away from each other. They would be remaining as friends for each other. Just to be a family member would not keep them together. يوم يفر المرء من أخيه وصاحبته وبنيه وفصيلته التي تؤويه ومن في الأرض جميعا ينجيه. But at the same time, the pious people are friends with each other. And the good leaders would care for their congregation. The holy prophets, the imams, would not run away from their community. They would care for them. They would help them. But bad people would become enemies of each other, even the leaders and the people. إِذْ تَبَرَّأَ الَّذِينَ اتُّبِعُوا مِنَ الَّذِينَ اتَّبَعُوا. Those who were followed, like Pharaoh, like Namrud, they would try to distance themselves and disassociate themselves from their followers. And the followers also would get a lesson that they shouldn't have had any hope in these people. So they say, يَا لَيْتَ لَنَا كَرَّةً فَنَتَبَرَّأَ مِنْهُمْ كَمَا تَبَرَّأُوا مِنَّا. They wish they were able to go back and do the same thing with these people. But neither the leaders can run away from them, nor these people can run away from them. But they remain as enemies together. They remain together, but as enemies. They go together to hell, but as enemies. يَقْدُمُ قَوْمَهُ يَوْمَ الْقِيَامَةِ. Pharaoh would lead them. فَأَوْرَدَهُمُ النَّارِ. But when they are going to hell, they curse each other. They say bad things to each other. They hate each other. It's not that they go together to hell, say, okay, now that we are going to hell together, let's be friends. They cannot remain friends. They become enemies. Perhaps the harm they do to each other is more than the harm of fire. They so much annoy each other verbally and perhaps physically that it makes hell worse for them. But those who are pious, right on the day of judgment, not only in heaven, even on the day of judgment, they remain as friends. You know how good it is to have friends in that difficult time? When you go to a new place and you have no experience, if you have a friend, it helps a lot. Even if that friend is also the same as you. If there are two strangers but friends, it's a big, help. If you go, for example, to Hajj, if you go to Arafat and you are alone, it's very difficult. But if you are two people together, say, okay, we will solve the problems together. It's a big comfort. So, الأخلاء يومئذ بعضهم لبعض عدو إلا المتقين, which means that even on the same day they will remain as friends. And of course, in the heaven would be the same. Inshallah, one of the verses that we will talk later is this beautiful verse. Inshallah, next week we will talk more about this verse. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, إِنَّ الْمُتَّقِينَ في جنات وعيون ادخلوها بسلام آمنين ونزعنا ما في صدورهم من غل إخوانا على سرر متقابلين. So they remain as friends on the day of judgment, and they go to heaven as friends, but Allah would remove any hatred, so they become perfect friends. On the day of judgment they are friends, but in heaven they become perfect friends, because نَزَعْنَا مَا فِي قُلُوبِهِم مِّنْ غِلٍّ. Nothing remains which would damage their friendship. No hatred, no bad thinking, no bad intention. Pure, perfect friends. Inshallah, we will talk about it next week. So, الأخلاء يومئذ بعضهم لبعض عدو إلا المتقين. Why? Why they become enemies for each other? Why they don't just ignore each other? Because there are two possibilities. One is to become enemy. One is to just be unknown. I don't know you. You say, I was your friend. I say, I don't know you. Why they become enemy? Perhaps the reason is because their friendship was based on worldly reasons. Their friendship was based on selfish reasons. Therefore, they realized that they have been harming themselves instead of serving each other. If two students who are supposed to study together, one of them, for example, asks, the other gives answers. They review together, they make notes together, they do research together. If these two students, instead of doing these things, they go to cinema together, they play together, they do bad things together, they very much enjoy themselves in dunya. But on the day of exam, when they cannot pass the exam and they fail, they curse each other. You wasted my time. I came all the way from my own town here. I spent lots of money. I missed my home in order to learn. Now I am failing. So they become enemies because they realize that they have wasted the time of each other, and time is great capital. They have wasted talents of each other. And sometimes they have encouraged each other to do bad things. You know, sometimes people, when they are alone, they don't have courage to do bad things. But a friend gives them encouragement. Many bad people, in the first time, if they were alone, they were not doing bad things. It's because someone encouraged them. So that person who encouraged him, indeed he was his enemy. Although he was, laughing with him and, praising him, but he was his enemy. So these people become enemies for each other, except the pious people. A pious friend would laugh with you, would joke with you, would make your time, enjoyable. But there is a limit for that. A pious friend does all these things as long as he knows that these are not going to harm you. A pious friend, when he sees that these things are going to harm you, he says, sorry, I cannot do this. You have exam tomorrow. I am free, but you have exam. I should let you study because I care for you. I am a pious person. A person who is not pious says, tonight I am free. You have exam, don't worry. Let's, go to a, place and enjoy ourselves. But a pious person doesn't do that. Even if you force him, he would say no. Sometimes a pious person may even make you cry. As we have in hadith, your good friend is the one that makes you cry. Sometimes he says you the truth. Sometimes he warns you. It's not that all the time he make you laugh. If there is a person who all the time makes you laugh, I don't think he's a good friend. If a person that no matter what you do, all the time he encourages you, I don't think he's a good friend. A good friend is the one who encourages you when you are doing something good and discourages you when you are doing something bad. Sometimes he says to you yes, sometimes he says no. This is a good friend. The next verse is Surah Furqan, verses 26 to 28. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. الملك يومئذ الحق للرحمن. The kingdom on that day is true. It's true kingdom. It's not something that you can cheat, you can manipulate and get power. That is a true kingdom which is for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Lir-Rahman. And it is good that it is for Rahman. It means that the principles of that kingdom are based on mercy. Al-mulku yawma'idhin al-haq lir-Rahman. But unfortunately, there are people who have been in their own life always far away from mercy. So much so that they hated Rahman, who offers mercy, but they hated Rahman. So for them that day becomes very difficult. If there is a day that only merciful people can celebrate, so someone who has never been merciful, for him that day is terrible day. Therefore, وَكَانَ يَوْمًا عَلَى الْكَافِرِينَ عَسِيرًا. This day would be very difficult for those who were against Rahman, who didn't believe in Rahman, who didn't show mercy. وَيَوْمَ يَعَضُّ الظَّالِمُ عَلَى يَدَيْهِ يَقُولُ يَا لَيْتَنِ اتَّخَذْتُ مَعَ الرَّسُولِ سَبِيلًا. Those who have done zulm to themselves, who are those who don't believe, they regret. They bite their own hands. They would say, I wish I had made friendship with the messenger of God. I would have found a path towards God and made my companion the prophet of God. If I had made such a choice to move towards God, with Messenger of God being my companion. As Allah says, من يطع الله والرسول فأولئك مع الذين أنعم الله عليهم من النبيين والشهداء والصديقين والصالحين وحسن أولئك رفيقا. So the best companions, the best co-travelers are prophets, are the witnesses, are the righteous people, are the truthful people. So this person says, يا ليتني اتخذت مع الرسول سبيلا. I wish I have chosen a path along with Rasulullah. But instead of that, I oppose Rasulullah. I opposed Allah who has sent Rasulullah. I opposed Qur'an, which is the message of rahmah from Allah. Ya waylata laytani lam attakhidh fulanan khalila. And instead, I made friendship with the people that they didn't help me. So they have two reasons for being remorseful. One is why I didn't make friendship with Rasulullah. The second is why I chose bad people as my friends. Because of these problems, I have lost. This shows the power of friendship. Friendship, whether it is good or bad, it's very powerful, it's very effective. Surah Isra, number 73. There are two more verses, so please bear with me so that we finish this Khalil. وَإِنْ كَادُوا لَيَفْتِنُونَكَ عَنِ الَّذِي أَوْحَيْنَا إِلَيْكَ لِتَفْتَرِيَ عَلَيْنَا غَيْرَهُ. They were very likely, means they tried hard to deceive you in order to fabricate something and attribute to us. They wanted to deceive Rasulullah. Instead of Rasulullah teaching what Allah has revealed to him, tell them what is a fabrication, what is fake. They were not happy with the message of God, so they tried to somehow change the idea of Rasulullah by giving him some suggestions, to bring temptations to him, or by threatening him, so that Rasulullah, instead of delivering the message of Allah, tells something from himself. وَإِنْ كَادُوا لَيَفْتِنُونَكَ عَنِ الَّذِي أَوْحَيْنَا إِلَيْكَ لِتَفْتَرِيَ عَلَيْنَا غَيْرَهُ. This is their wish. Of course, they were not successful because Rasulullah is not listening to them. Right from the beginning, Rasulullah made it clear that even if they give him sun in his right hand and moon in the left hand, he's not going to listen. But this doesn't stop them trying, because they say maybe now he has changed. Maybe we can approach him in a different way. They keep trying. If you say no today, they come tomorrow. If tomorrow you say no again, they come. They want to keep trying so that maybe one day, when you are not very alert, they catch you in your heedlessness. وَإِذَنْ لَاتَّخَذُوكَ خَلِيلًا. If you were going to listen to them and fabricate something and attribute it to us, then they would choose you as their friends. Now they are not your friends because you are not giving them what they want. You are insisting on the truth. These are the people of falsehood, so they are not friends of you. If you were going to listen to them, they would have become your friends. But this is the type of friendship which on the day of judgment becomes enmity. Because these are not the lovers of Rasulullah. These are the people who have selfish reasons and they want Rasulullah to be their friends in order to achieve their own ends, their own aims. إِذَنْ لَاتَّخَذُوكَ خَلِيلًا. And finally, this is a very beautiful verse. Maybe I just read the verse and ask you to think about it for next week. This is Surah Nisa number 125. And although our discussion is about human relations, but this is relation of a human being with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is about Prophet Ibrahim alayhi salam, that Allah chose him as Khalil. وَمَنْ أَحْسَنُ دِينًا مِمَّنْ أَسْلَمَ وَجْهَهُ لِلَّهِ وَهُوَ مُحْسِنٌ. Who is better in his faith than a person who submits his face to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala while he is a benefactor, he's doing good things. He has chosen the religion, the faith of Ibrahim, which is Tawheed, and at the same time he is Muhsin, he is doing good things. He has faith and good deeds. وَاتَّبَعَ مِلَّةَ إِبْرَاهِيمَ حَنِيفًا, and has followed the path of Ibrahim while he is Hanif. Hanif is the person who turns away from falsehood to the truth. The one who has oriented himself towards the truth is Hanif. So Allah refers to Muslims. Who is better than a Muslim, a follower of Islam, who says that I believe in Allah, I do righteous deeds, and I am a follower of Ibrahim? Who was Ibrahim? وَاتَّخَذَ اللَّهُ إِبْرَاهِيمَ خَلِيلًا. Ibrahim is the one that Allah chose him as his friend. This is very special. There are some people who take Allah as their friend. Although these are not the majority of people, but the number is not so little. Allah is their friends. But to be friend of Allah is very special. How many people in the world, in the entire history of humanity, have reached this position of being friend of Allah? It's very special. Please think about 2 points. Why Ibrahim was chosen as friend by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? And second, what did it mean? What was the implication? If you are chosen as a friend by Allah, what happens? Is it just an official degree or honorary degree or position that you receive? They give you a title, you are Sir so and so? Or is it a real position? So why Ibrahim was chosen to be friend of God? And what are the implications of this position? If someone is a friend of God, then what would he do? What change this brings to his life and the life of people? These are 2 things that inshallah think about them, and we will talk about them inshallah in the next session. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala enable us to choose him and good people as our friends, and may Allah inshallah finally chooses us as his friends. Wa akhiru da'wana and alhamdulillahi rabbil alamin.